So a little over 6 months ago, I decided I wanted to try and make a video a day and just follow along with my journeys. And through that, I decided I'd tell funny stories once a week. And this is going to be this week's story. I've been out in North Carolina donating time, and I got a little behind on videos, so I'm trying to catch up. And it seems that I'm talking a lot about my Firebird. That was my first car. It was a 74 Firebird orange. Freaking awesome. I loved it. And I'm going to be posting pictures of it here and there. And if you see pictures of it without a hood, let me tell you why. I think that's the only pictures I have. Unfortunately, I don't have it when it was looking good, but it was a pretty nice car. I paid $500 for it back when I was a kid. I got half of it, and the other half old man helped me get, so it was a good first car. I really loved it. This is the story of what happened to it. I kept driving it after this happened. This happened pretty much when I first got it, and I drove it for years afterwards, crashed up and stuff, and didn't even care. I just continued to drive it, beat up. But yeah, this is right when I first got it, pretty much. We were down at the graveyard, and there's like a little circle drive down at the graveyard right where we grew up. And I was going through there, and I was a stupid kid doing stupid stuff, and I'd go through and I'd just completely drift it and just go massively sideways and drift through there. And we'd do it all the time. It was a common thing we did. And I was destructive. I was a little turd. But my buddy, who was a little bit younger than me, he said, "Hey man, can I give it a try?" And I was like, "Oh sure, no problem. That's no problem at all. This will be great." And we had another buddy in the back, and I kind of gave him the 1-2, just hammer on it and the gas, and then drift it through. And he rode quads. He knew what was up. We rode a lot of quads together and had a little racetrack we built. And I knew he was proficient, and so he goes, and he drifts it so perfect. It was so perfect. He's just drifting sideways. But then right at the end, he overcorrects when he was bringing it around and goes wham, and smacked it right into a tree and just smashed my car right into a tree. And I'm like, oh no. And so I go, and I think I hit my head on the windshield, and I look over at him, and he was bleeding everywhere. And he had put his tooth through his lip when he hit the steering wheel. His face hit the steering wheel, and he put his tooth through his lip. Well, I knew my buddy had a problem with seeing his own blood. Anytime he sees his own blood, he passes out and just falls right out. And I look over at him, and I'm like, oh man. And he's like, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's all right, man. He's like, oh no, am I bleeding? And I was like, no, man, you're not bleeding at all. It's okay, just calm down a minute, it'll all be all right. And he goes, oh man, I think I'm bleeding. And he wipes his face with his hand, and he looks down at his hand, and it's all covered in blood. Second he does, he passes out, just out, straight out. And I'm like, oh no. And then I check on my buddy in the back, and I'm like, Snake, you all right back there? And he's like, yeah. I just, whenever we hit the tree, I just put my arms and legs out and splatted against the back of the seat like a frog. It just cushioned me. I'm fine. No worries. And I'm like, all right. So, we got my other buddy back conscious, and got him cleaned up. It wasn't really that bad of a cut. It just bled a lot because of the way it was, but it wasn't really that bad at all. But I had to take the car back, and he was too young to be driving at the time, and it was stupid, and I shouldn't have been encouraging it. So I took it all on the chin, and I went back, and I was like, oh, look at what I did. And I took full responsibility for it, and just completely let everybody razz me, man. I was a little bit wilder in my younger days, and everybody was like, oh, that's what you get for being wild, and you're just so careless. And I just, people were hard on me. I caught a lot of flack over the old Firebird being crashed up, but I took the hood off and just kept driving it. I didn't care. I drove it all over. I went to different states in that thing with no hood, not even caring, just driving it with no hood. I bet I drove it for 2 years with no hood whatsoever because the front end was all smashed up. And it still drove. It still worked. So it just, the hood The hood did close at first, and I tried to like wire it down, but it popped open one day going down the highway and completely blinded me, and I think bent it real bad to where it was no longer usable. So I just took it off and rolled with it like that, and that was my childhood and how I rolled. But yeah, it was just another one of those funny stories from life. My buddy, I let him try and drift my car, and he smashed it, and then I had to take full responsibility. And I never told any of the adults. All the adults, they like I said, they razzed me pretty hard, but I didn't tell any of them until years and years later. It was over a decade later, and they're like, "What? No way!" And I was like, "Yeah, I wasn't about ready to snitch on him. I took it on the chin." Let everybody think I was a terrible driver when he wasn't even a terrible driver. We were just pushing our limits and being a little rowdy, and we learned a lesson that day. So yeah, that's my story for the week. I appreciate everybody for following along. Like and subscribe to keep up.